I'm very excited to be joined by the Chief Content Officer and Senior Executive Vice President of the NHL, Steve Mayer. Steve, how's it going? Thanks for coming on.
It is a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I'm curious, how do you usually spend your off season? I know this season's a little more difficult or more busy because of the expansion draft coming up, but what would you typically be doing right now that we're in this off season, and what are you doing this summer? Any big plans?
Did you say off season?
Well, I guess you don't have an off season, do you?
That's your listen. I think the world of your podcast. I think the world of you, but you've already got something wrong.
I'm sorry.
There is no such thing as off season.
Mm-hmm.
And just this week, we've got the expansion draft, then we've got the draft, then we've got a schedule release, and then we've got free agency, and that takes us all the way into the last week of July.
Mm-hmm.
And then in August, we are prepping because we have 2 months and actually 1 month before training camp, but 2 months before the season begins. And because we got a late start, because we didn't know that things would open up the way they're opening up, in my world, I'm the chief content officer, but I also run our events department at the league.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to get going on planning events for next season, Winter Classic, Stadium Series, All-Star games, drafts, all of the next season. So we're going to use August and parts of September to do that. So there goes the off season. It is going, and it is gone.
Well, I actually spoke to Liam McHugh about it on our last episode, about how it felt kind of cool that the NHL playoffs and the Stanley Cup final especially ran through the 4th of July. Like it had like that special kind of feeling towards it, like, being with family, being with friends outside in the summer and watching the Stanley Cup final. Were you somewhat happier with how the schedule kind of worked out this season? I know we had a late start, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the NHL playoffs running through June and a little bit of July.
Listen, well, I like the Stanley Cup playoffs no matter when they are. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, only because you
don't have to.
Once we get into the summer, it's not hockey weather, not like we struggle a little bit even when we finish in June normally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end of the day, I think it was fine. It was cool that we went that far, but I do think we like to get back onto a normal schedule. And I also think it's because of what I just talked about. The off season is not an off season, and we go hard. And listen, everybody has their jobs that they do. They work their butts off no matter what they do. But during a season, we go really hard and really fast, and you need a little downtime. And we haven't had any downtime since the pandemic hit, none. And I think, my group, both in the content world and also in the events world at the league, we're just dying to get, a week off even just to recharge the batteries. But, going back though, one of the things you said, hockey is a social sport. You want to watch with your family. I mean, hockey night in Canada, in Canada, that Saturday night was built because families did something together. It was great for society, and it built up hockey like no other sport in Canada. I think there is something social about the game. You see the masses of fans that go to our games, both inside the arena, outside the arena. That's cool, and doing it in the summer months. A lot better to do it outside when it's 90 degrees than when it's below 10 degrees. So anyway, we it has been odd. We're off schedule. We've been off schedule now for 2 years. It'll be nice to finally next season get back on schedule.
Plus, we all know how much NHL players and people that work in hockey in general just love being on the golf course. So we don't want to take away time from that, right?
Yeah, listen, aside from 2 teams, there's plenty of players and plenty of hockey personnel that are on the golf course early. That's one of the things, too, to keep in mind and always never forget. Teams that don't make the playoffs, they have months off. Months off. It's for those teams to get all the way to the end that really have a limited amount of time off. We're in that group, but there are plenty of teams that I'm sure, would like to look at the schedule a little differently because they've been off since April. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, because I know you were a big-time producer at IMG for many, many years, and you've been with the NHL now for a little over 6 years, or around 6 years.
Around 6 years, yeah.
And a lot has changed, I feel like, since you've stepped in. You've produced many shows with the NHL, and I'm curious to know if there are any shows in the works now that we're transitioning back to TNT and ESPN.
Well, I do think that there will be things that we'll do because of these new relationships that I'm super excited about. We had a great run with NBC. They were an awesome partner. We did a lot together, and we've done a lot at the league. And trying to just sort of build our profile and do bigger and better. But with ESPN and with Turner, not only is it one new partner, it's two. And what I love, what they do in other sports as well, there's a little competition, and competition breeds, more innovation, more creative. Let's do this. Well, then we're going to do that. Well, we're going to do this. And you're seeing it in just the talent that's being hired. You're going to hear a lot about how they're going to approach our game coverage, the ancillary programs, which I'm also, deeply involved with. I think you're going to start to see a lot more of those. It's great for us. And so far, they've been amazing partners. They're so excited about doing this. We're also so excited to have them. And, a lot of the things that we tried at NBC, I'm sure we're going to try again. And then many things that we just never got off the ground, we've been proposing, and they're all open. Both of them are wide open to our suggestions. We like to hear what they think, because they're fresh eyes on what we've been doing. Mm-hmm. It's going to be good.
Well, now that Pierre Maguire took a job with Ottawa, we need Laszlo Holmes in between the glass.
Yeah, you know what? But I do think like that sort of openness and willingness to add celebrity. Mm-hmm. How important music can be in, the connection of music and sports. I mean, there are a lot of things that they're going to do, and creating events. We just got off a call this morning with ESPN about opening night. Opening night is going to become an event, and that is music to my ears. Those are the kind of things that I think would make me and our team excited about what we can do. And we are. We're really looking forward to, what we're going to be able to do together. And I think for the fan, it's going to be really exciting to see.
So for you personally, what have been some of the biggest changes that you have made since stepping into the NHL?
Well, listen, we have made. I lead a great team.
Hockey answer.
Well, it is,
yeah.
But it's the right answer, mm-hmm. and it's very meaningful. We put together a team that I think are the best in the business, both on the content side and the event side, and we've made a lot of strides. I mean, listen, on the social side, on the viewing side, you just look at our numbers as compared to 5 or 6 years ago, and they just keep growing. We're just producing tons of content. We've grown our team. I mean, when I got to the league, we had 5 producers. I think we're up to 40 something. Wow. Yeah. So, we've got a focus. We've got the best leader. Commissioner Gary Bettman is unbelievable when it comes to entertainment. Giving you the resources you need to do things that we all think, can move the meter. And then, which we've just been trying to make our events just bigger and better. And I think, it might be subtle to some. To me, I think it's definitely different in terms of what these events look like, how big they've become, how we make them week-long extravaganzas instead of day-long extravaganzas, the way they sort of look on television, really important to us. we want to create things that just, move the meter a bit, not only in the hockey world, but it's really important in the sports world. Like, there's a lot of competition, and every night, Johnny, you've got a chance to like watch a basketball game, a hockey game, college basketball. So how do we catch your attention, and how do we get you to watch the NHL? That's the goal. And I think that we're making strides. People have hockey in the conversation. We've got a long way to go. We're not fooling ourselves, but we're happy with the direction we're going in, and we're super happy. And I guess living proof was the fact that both ESPN and Turner felt so compelled about what we've been doing to sign on with us for the next 7 years.
Well, piggybacking off of that, as someone who's been to Lake Tahoe, I was a huge fan of the outdoor game this year, and it kind of reminded me of when I was a kid. I would play I think NHL Hits Pro on GameCube, and there was all those different rinks you could play in, like a clown rink, a shark tank, all these kinds of things. Are we going to be seeing more of that in the next coming years, like cool, backdrop kind of places to have an NHL game?
Yeah, so I hope so. Listen, it was a victim, or I shouldn't say victim, because it certainly wasn't a victim. It was something we've always wanted to do. Always wanted to do from the time I walked in the door, and before that. But the fact that this year it was the perfect time, we couldn't have fans anyway. Remember, at that time, there were no fans even in our arenas. So, to be able to say, let's do this. Let's do something this year that would be really significant. We felt like, okay, let's go. And again, the commissioner signed off, said, if you think this will be cool, let's do it. And we're really happy. We had some issues with the sun, big deal. Like, we're really happy because, again, going back to something I said earlier, what we're trying to do is get the attention of sports fans. And that game was talked about by everyone. It was so different, so unique. It looked so cool. It got us a lot of attention at a time where, listen, let's face it, the sports world was getting a little boring. People were getting a little sick of just, no fans in the arena. Same old. The energy wasn't there. And we did something that like stood out, and we're really proud of it. And I think right now we're welcoming fans back in. We're going back to a real schedule next year, outdoor games, winter classics. We want to, celebrate the fact that our fans are back. But I do think in future years, we're going to look at one of those games or many of those games, because they were pretty cool, and they definitely did something that, for us, accomplished what we set out to do, and that was to gain some attention.
Can I propose one?
Sure, of course. I've heard them all, but
I know. I figured.
I'm looking forward to maybe hearing a new one. Let's hear it.
I'm sure you've heard this one before, and I know it probably would be tough to compete with the NBA, but Christmas Day, Rockefeller Center, Islanders, Rangers.
Very nice. I like that. So that's not bad. And by the way, I haven't heard that one.
Okay, chalk it up for me. 1 point for me.
When people go to New York, they go immediately to Central Park. We've got to do a game in Central Park. So I haven't heard Rockefeller Center.
Well, the rink's there.
It's a good one. I love it.
The rink's there. The tree's there.
Everything's there. Although that's not a regulation, right?
Yeah.
You should know that.
That's fair.
But yeah, listen, I think, we're up for ideas. That's the other thing too. Like, we've been pitched a million ideas. We've come up with a lot of ideas. That's the fun part. Just go get in a room and brainstorming and thinking of like what's next. But I'd like to do things like that. That would be super cool. No question. And but there's also that fan piece of it that you want to do something that the fans could take in, not only on television but live as well. We'll see. We've got a few up our sleeve coming up, and there's some pretty cool places you can do some really amazing games.
Well, I know Will Ferrell's a big hockey fan. You get him in the Buddy the Elf costume in between the glass interviewing players.
You really thought this thing
I really thought this one through. Yeah, I knew who I was talking to today.
I like it. I mean, listen, I think Central Park is kind of boring compared to what you just came up with.
Agreed.
So good for you.
I'll take a percent.
All right, no problem. We'll negotiate immediately.
Deal. Well, actually, I do like to propose ideas like all the guests that I have, just kind of different categories. But this one, since we've seen so many playoff overtime games, the thought about having the first overtime be 5-on-5, second overtime 4-on-4, third overtime 3-on-3, and like continue on that way. I think that'd be really cool. Plus, we won't see like any 5 overtime games that are just 8 hours long.
So and that's been proposed. Oh, listen, that's not been proposed for playoffs. I've heard that proposal for regular season as well.
I'll take half a point on that one.
You should take a half a point.
Okay.
Again, it's you're a little late on that one today. You proposed before. Listen, to me, one of the coolest pieces of our sport is the fact you can have a 5 overtime game. Mm-hmm. Think about last year in the bubble. People are still talking about that game, the 5 overtime game. I don't know. There's an effort or an interest in sports lately to get these things over with, end the games early. Penalty kicks in the Euro final.
Hated that.
Putting a guy on second base in extra innings. The most memorable games that I remember watching sometimes are the ones that go all night, and will this ever end? And I don't know. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to sports. I get why we want to move the thing along. I clearly understand that. I know your generation is just consuming it here and doesn't give, really doesn't give that sort of weight to, wow, I was at a 21 inning game. You guys have something to do, so you're leaving in the 10th inning. Mm-hmm. My generation will sit there all day. So listen, I think it will be debated. I think TV drives a lot of the decisions. The TV marketplace, there's always something on after you. So, a 21 inning game can ruin a programming day at an ESPN or a Turner. Things that, we're going to see things evolve for sure. I'm not so sure on that one. I love your Christmas at Rockefeller Center idea. I'm not so sure on this one.
All right, I'm back to even. I was +1, but now I'm back to even on the scorecard.
Yeah, it's not bad. And again, there are a lot of people in your corner.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But just to wrap things up, because I know we're a little tight on time, if you can go back in your 6 years working with the NHL and change the outcome of any game or any series in the playoffs that have happened, just maybe for ratings purposes, I don't know, which one would you change? Which one sticks out the most?
Yeah, listen, I one of the things that I learned, and I see your backdrop, and I understand who I'm talking to. Uh-huh. And I will admit that before, people don't understand that. Like before you get to the league, you actually were a fan of a team, mm-hmm. And I was a Rangers fan. But walking in the door, you become a fan of all 32 teams. Now 32 this week with the expansion draft. It becomes real in Seattle, which I think is just so cool. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to answer your question.
You don't have to.
I'm not, for the fear of that someone from some team will hear that and go, "What? What did you say?" Listen, I think the beauty of any sport, it's so unpredictable. You just don't ever understand, or you can't predict what's going to happen. Our sport has such parity. These teams really, on any given night, can beat each other. And this was a living proof this past playoff. Montreal 1 game away from being eliminated, and the next thing you know, they're in the final. And because of that, even though Tampa was doing so well, none of us ever felt, even up 3-0, and even heading into overtime, like Montreal couldn't score the goal, which they ended up scoring in Game 4, and come back and win the series. Yeah. There was no one who doubted that they couldn't do it. That's the beauty of hockey. That's the beauty of the NHL right now. I think that's what makes our sport great. And, for us, we just go with the flow. The coolest thing about working at the league is the Stanley Cup playoffs, where I don't know where I'm spending my month of June and July. I don't. Mm-hmm. am going somewhere. And this year it happened to be that we were in Vegas and Montreal and we were in Tampa. We were just waiting to find out, officially where we're going to go. And that's what I think is so cool. Like every year, you just never know. And if you predict, you're just going to get yourself in trouble because it rarely works out that the better teams, the best teams end up in the final.
Yeah. I mean, that was a perfect answer. And I know I tried to trick you there a little bit, but
don't, after 6 years, it's hard to trick me.
Yeah.
No, and that's the beauty of the league too. I'm rooting for all 32 teams equally, but there's such good people that are in all these places. You actually really want every team to succeed. Like you feel for them. You get what they're going through in your bones as well. And you just want to be happy for them because it is pretty cool when you get there. And, Kamish says this all the time. His greatest accomplishment or the thing he enjoys the most is when he gets to hand out the cup. For me, it's the being on the ice when the cup has been handed out. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in a road building or a home building like we were this year, nothing like it. Yeah. Nothing like it because it's sheer joy. Every one of those players, that's their goal, whether they won it the year before like Tampa Bay did. It was so cool. It was as if they had won it for the first time. They love it, every single minute of it. It's cool to see. It's one of the greatest parts of the sport, if not the best.
That's what we all grew up dreaming about, right? That feeling. But Steve, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Seriously, you're awesome. I really appreciate it.
No, listen, thank you for having me anytime. And when we get in the room starting to talk about that Christmas idea, I'm going to give you a call. You're coming in.
FaceTime me.
You got it. We'll do it.
All right. Thank you.